Welcome everyone, I'm Archit Seshadri. Thanks so much for watching World is One News. Let's bring you your news headlines right now. India's Home Minister Rajnath Singh holds an all-party meet to discuss the course of action in Kashmir. The centre takes on a tough position against separatists after they boycott the all-party delegation's visit to Jammu and Kashmir. Well, despite all the tough talk on terror, the U.S. says it is not considering sanctions against Pakistan. India builds on its Act East policy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe at the Asian Summit. To West Asia now, a suspected chlorine gas attack hits the opposition-held neighborhood in Aleppo. And in sports, U.S. Open world number 1 Novak Djokovic enters the semis for the 10th consecutive time. Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us. Those stories in just a moment, but first we start in India, where Home Minister Rajnath Singh will meet with President Pranab Mukherjee this evening. Now, he's going to be there to update him on the situation in Kashmir. An all-party meeting was held in New Delhi to draw the blueprint for resolving the ongoing crisis in the valley. Home Minister Rajnath Singh met up with senior leaders from all political parties. He also met with Army Chief General Dalbir Singh Suhag ahead of the meeting. But the leader of the opposition, Ghulam Nabi Azad, stayed away from the discussions. They focused mostly on finding a solution to the unrest there in the valley. An all-party delegation led by the Home Minister visited the state over the weekend to figure out what exactly is going on the ground. Well, opposition parties are demanding some concrete confidence-building measures with regards to Kashmir. Now, this was one of the outcomes of the all-party meet that wrapped up in Delhi. Now, reports suggest that the centre is unhappy that the separatists chose not to meet with the all-party delegation that visited them over the weekend. Reports suggest the centre is considering on a crackdown for separatist leadership. Now, they may see their passports withdrawn and also a denial in some of their travel documents. A scrutiny of the leaders' bank accounts and completion of pending investigation is also on the cards. While staying in the valley, Jammu and Kashmir's Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti has accused the separatists there of instigating children in the valley to engage in violence. Now, she also said that children are innocent and they are being used as shields during some of the protests. They're also being used to fight bullets and pellet guns. But she did express confidence that the valley will come out strong from all the fighting.
ये तो बच्चों का काम नहीं है, बच्चों का काम पढ़ाई लिखाई है। क्या कोई माँ बाप अपने छोटे बच्चे को तो चुमा गरस में बचस त्रावा बाहर त्युत किया जो संसो है कि तुले कोई ऐसा काम है, ये बच्चों का काम है कि उनको शील्ड बना के ले जाते हैं। ये बहुत बुरा है और जब तक मेरे दम में दम है मैं इसके खिलाफ लड़ूंगी।
Well, the U.S. State Department on Tuesday said that the U.S. is not considering sanctions for Pakistan. It also said that recent operations conducted by Pakistan along the border with Afghanistan are encouraging. The U.S. said that Pakistan should target all militant groups, even those that target its neighbors. It also went on to say that the U.S. is not planning any kind of punishment for the country for not taking action against terrorist groups. A State Department spokesperson said that former U.S. ambassador to the UN, Zalmay Khalilzad's comments on the issue, and basically talked about that this is a serious ongoing threat and that they do need to impose sanctions for the country. U.S., of course, now saying that Pakistan to combat terror and is adding more pressure to more of the militant groups in that country. Well, on Tuesday, the chief of Pakistan's army asserted that the defense of the country is invincible. General Raheel Sharif was addressing a ceremony in Rawalpindi to mark Pakistan's Defense Day. Now, in his address, Sharif described Kashmir as Pakistan's jugular vein and also praised the people of the valley for their many sacrifices. He also said that Islamabad will continue to support them on the diplomatic and ethical fronts. He went on to call the relationship between Pakistan and China the greatest example of mutual respect in the region. He added that China and Pakistan's friendship is based squarely on the principle of equality.
कश्मीर हमारी शहराग है, हक़ खुद इरादियत कि इस जिदोजहद का असल हल नहत्ते कश्मीरी अवाम पर गोलियों की बारिश करने में नहीं, बल्कि अवाम की आवाज़ सुनने और उनकी उमंगों का एहतराम करने में है.
Well, militants attacked a convoy of the Indian Army in Kupwara district of Jammu and Kashmir. 3 soldiers were injured in that attack. The militants opened fire on the army bus, which was heading towards Handwara. 3 soldiers sustained bullet injuries. Now, while the militants managed to flee the area has also been cordoned off by the army while it carries out search operations to nab the attackers. Well, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi has launched a scathing attack on Prime Minister Modi at the Kisan Yatra in Uttar Pradesh. Mounting pressure on the BJP government, Rahul said that it was waving off its debts for only the rich and not the farmers. He said that the previous UPA government, led by his party, had waved off around 700 billion rupees for farmers. Rahul Gandhi is on a month-long march to revive his party's fortunes in Uttar Pradesh, all ahead of next year's polls. He's also going door-to-door in the state, meeting up with farmers and laborers.
आप सूट बूट की सरकार मत चलाइए, आप गरीब लोगों की सरकार चलाइए. अगर आप बड़े उद्योगपतियों का कर्ज माफ कर रहे हैं तो आप किसान का भी कर्ज माफ कीजिए. किसान को आप मत भूलिए, क्योंकि किसान रो रहा है, बड़ा उद्योगपति रो नहीं रहा है. बड़े उद्योगपति के ऊपर के कंधों पे बोझ नहीं है. किसान पूरा हिंदुस्तान का बोझ अपने कंधों पे उठा लिया घूम रहा है.
Violent protests continued for the second day in Karnataka over the Kaveri River water sharing issue. Farmer unions in the state have called for a shutdown tomorrow in protest against the Supreme Court order. The Supreme Court says Karnataka has to give about 15,000 cusecs of water from the Kaveri River to the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu for the next 10 days. Now, that decision has angered farmers in the state who have come out to protest. Police stations were vandalized. They're also asking the schools as well as colleges to be closed there for the next 2 days. Well, the popular augmented reality game Pokemon Go has been accused of hurting religious sentiments in India. A petition has been filed in this regard in the Gujarat High Court against developers of the popular mobile app. The PIL says the game hurts religious sentiments of certain communities by showing eggs in places of worship. Now, the police says Hindus and Jains consider it to be blasphemous to carry out eggs inside a place where people gather to pray. The High Court has also asked the center, the Gujarat government, and the U.S.-based company Niantic to respond to these allegations. The government of Maldives on Wednesday revoked the passport of the former president and leader in exile, Mohamed Nasheed. Now, this comes in the wake of his comments to an Indian publication of plans to unseat the current president of Maldives, Abdullah Yameen, along with Mahmoud Abdul Gayoom, who also served as the president of the island nation. Gayoom vowed to uphold the constitution of the Maldives after talk of an alliance between the pair. Well, Indian PM Narendra Modi, who is attending the 14th ASEAN Summit in Laos, met his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe, all in an effort to build on his Act East policy. Modi says the ASEAN is a vital part of the economic development for the region of India. He also says that India wants to enhance its physical and digital connectivity with the Southeast Asian nations to leverage the modern interconnected world for their mutual benefit. Now, the summit will focus on traditional and non-traditional security challenges, as well as various opportunities before the Asia-Pac region. Well, Myanmar State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi and Japanese PM Shinzo Abe met in Vientiane and Laos on Wednesday to talk about some bilateral relation issues. Both leaders are there to attend the annual summit as well. Now, this is the first time Suu Kyi, the de facto leader of Myanmar, joins the region's largest annual meeting. Also in attendance, several world leaders, including those from the U.S., China, Japan, South Korea, India, Australia, Russia, and New Zealand. Next now to Europe, British Finance Minister Philip Hammond will hold a meeting with executives from major banks and insurers in the UK. Now, top bankers are hoping to gain a clearer picture of what exactly will happen post-Brexit. That's why they're holding this meeting. Now, this is the first time they're doing so after the Brexit vote. Now, Britain's financial sector employs more than 2 million people. Its executives say the industry deserves priority for the next Brexit negotiations. Now, bankers say the next time it'll be about 6 months, and those 6 months are crucial on how much business they need to move from the City of London.
The Paralympics will be starting very soon, so we'll be looking at the next steps that we need to.
Moving on now to the United States, President Barack Obama says the U.S. has a moral obligation to support the efforts to clear bombs dropped by its forces on Laos during the Vietnam War. Obama was visiting there with several different leaders, and he says that he's going to offer treatment for the survivors of the Vietnam War. The president also stressing that the wars impact so many people and beyond just those who appear in history books. Obama did arrive there after he attended the G20 summit. He's also expected to attend an annual international gathering in the Southeast region.
You provide assistance to those who've suffered because of UXO, while shining a spotlight on the work that still has to be done. And in that effort, I'm very glad that America is your partner. As President of the United States, I believe that we have a profound moral and humanitarian obligation to support this work. We're a nation that was founded on the belief in the dignity of every human being. Sometimes we've struggled to stay true to that belief, but that is precisely why we always have to work to address those difficult moments in history and to forge friendships with people who we once called enemies.
Well, speaking about U.S. President Barack Obama, the Philippines has now said they are apologizing for that, but the U.S. still upset about the remark that President Rodrigo Duterte hurled at Obama, hurling abuses. In fact, the U.S. State Department taking the opportunity on Wednesday to talk about that, basically saying both leaders were called off they were supposed to meet at the G20, but basically because of all that exchange, they felt that that meeting would have been unproductive. The U.S. State Department basically says these bilateral ties need to be based on mutual respect and that the words do matter. President Duterte of the Philippines had basically gone off on a tirade, telling Obama not to question the Philippines about extrajudicial killings in the country. But Duterte, of course, did apologize and felt that he went a little too far with the U.S. president.
I'm not going to pass judgment. I'm not going to make a pronouncement today. But, you know, as I said, words matter. And you know, we want to see an atmosphere that's cordial and open to strong cooperation.
Well, moving on now to Europe. French prosecutors have asked former President Nicolas Sarkozy to stand trial over his 2012 election spending. Sarkozy is accused of manipulating his accounts to hide the $20 million of expenses for the elections. Now, the amount spent was more than double the legal limit. Here's more on that story.
Sarkozy was put under formal investigation in February, with the trial decision yet to be taken by an investigative magistrate. If the magistrate agrees with the prosecutor's view, Sarkozy's bid for re-election in next year's presidential contest would become increasingly difficult.
If Sarkozy is in the situation to be actually nominated by the primary, Sarkozy will run for the election. It is unlikely that the trial will go before the election, so it could be that you have the strange situation that Sarkozy is under extremely close investigation, a lot of suspicion, but finally managed to be re-elected French president. With the status of the French president, he could save Sarkozy for 5 years now.
PR firm Pygmalion organised some of Sarkozy's campaign and is accused of using false accounting. Sarkozy has denied the allegations and said that he was unaware of the overspending. Bureau Report, WION.
Moving on now to West Asia, Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubair said on Tuesday that there was a possibility of reaching an agreement on the ceasefire situation with Syria within the next 24 hours. Now, when he asked to talk about the situation between the failure of the U.S. and Russia about the ceasefire, he refused to basically say it's a failure, but said it's a work in progress. The minister then said the Assad regime's history did not inspire optimism about implementing any agreement.
I believe I wouldn't describe it as a failure. I think that it's still a work in progress. There is a possibility of arriving at an understanding over the next 24 hours or so, and then we will test the seriousness of Bashar al-Assad and his allies in terms of complying with the ceasefire like that.
Staying in West Asia, rescue workers in Syria have reported a suspected chlorine gas attack, this in the city of Aleppo. Dozens of people were reported to have suffocated as a result on Tuesday. Now, in a video posted by the Syrian Civil Defense Group, you can see children there being treated at a hospital after the alleged attack. Reports even suggest that government helicopters may have dropped barrel bombs containing the chlorine gas, and that may have caused people to suffocate there. Good news, no deaths to be reported, but the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, or SOHR, that typically tracks what's going on there on the ground, says that there could be about 70 cases so far of reported chlorine suffocation. Well, the situation in Syria develops fast, and Turkey has recently opened up a new front backing the rebels of the Syrian Free Army in their offensive on the northern border. Let's see with our colleague Daniele Pagini how this changes the scenario.
Since the beginning of the Syrian civil war in 2011, more than 250,000 civilians have died. It means more than 120 a day. On top of this, at least 10 million people had to flee their home and are now living in temporary refugee camps. What started as a civil war has now become a global conflict, and the last to enter Syrian border was Turkey. On August 24th, its army, along with members of the Free Syrian Army, entered the city of Jarablus, on the western banks of the river Euphrates. 1 week later, Turkey's prime minister claimed that the last 95 kilometers of border under Islamic State controls are now free. This very segment has served for 5 years as a supply corridor for terrorists, and it remains unclear why Turkey did not secure this area before. Now, the Turkish army is moving south in an attempt to reach and conquer the Islamic State's stronghold of Al-Bab, and then secure the entire area. But Islamic State is not the only enemy that Turkey intends to fight in Syria. The Kurdish population occupies and controls a vast region called Rojava and a smaller enclave of Afrin, two areas that the Turkish presence will definitely split. The Kurdish army is known as the YPG, or People's Protection Unit. They have been fighting boots on the ground since the very beginning against the Islamic State. It is a guerrilla-style army with many women fighting within its ranks, and it is a formal American ally in Syria. The problem is that Turkey has fought a 2-decade-long Kurdish autonomist insurgency within its own borders and considers the YPG a terrorist organization. Their intention to attack the YPG is not just speculation, though. Turkish Prime Minister said clearly that they will not allow an artificial state in northern Syria. And Turkish President Erdogan was even more direct when he stated that the offensive would continue until the threat of Islamic State and the YPG is over. But attacking the YPG means attacking a former US ally. Turkey, though, is part of NATO, and this puts Washington in a very tricky situation. Turkish attacks against Kurdish outposts have been reported since late August 2016, and the United States Defense Secretary Ashton Carter appealed to both sides not to fight. For the time being, the YPG High Command ordered his units not to retaliate, reminding them that the true enemy is the Islamic State and not Turkey. But the Kurds will remain in Syria, as they say they would, where they want to claim their own state in recognition of the sacrifices they have made fighting Islamic State. It seems the region will be in turbulence once or if the Syrian war will ever end. Daniele Pagani from New Delhi, VO News.
Well, in a major departure from tradition, the Islamic State has banned burqas at its security centers in Mosul city in Iraq. The development comes after a number of commanders of the terrorist organization were recently killed by veiled women. Now, as a security precaution, the Islamic State has banned burqa-clad women from entering buildings in the city. They must now instead wear gloves and gauze to cover their eyes. The new rule comes as a surprise, as the terror group had earlier killed women for refusing to wear the conservative garment. All right, well, moving on now to sports. The 2016 Paralympic Games kick off in Rio. The event will feature 22 different sports. The Paralympic flames just reached the city yesterday and was used to light the ceremonial cauldron. Now, it marked the beginning of the Games. Now, the event will run from September 7th to September the 18th.
As we gather today for the creation of the Rio 2016 Paralympic flame, we can't forget the internal flame burning within all our athletes' hearts that will be shining brighter than ever at these Games. It's only 4 years, it isn't only 4 years of training and hard work that will be on display at these Games. It's a lifetime of incredible perseverance.
Well, now to some tennis magic. Novak Djokovic is through to the U.S. Open semis. This is his 10th consecutive trip in the last 4 at Flushing Meadows. The Serb was 2 sets up against Jo-Wilfried Tsonga when the Frenchman decided to retire from the match. Djokovic will now face another Frenchman in the semis, the 10th seed Gael Monfils. Caroline Wozniak also marched into the semis in New York. The Dane defeated her injured opponent, Anastasia Sevastova, in straight sets. This is her 5th time at the U.S. Open and her first time at a major in 2 years. Wozniacki will now take on the 2nd seed Angelique Kerber for a spot in the final. Well, Portugal were in for a rude awakening at the World Cup qualifier against Switzerland. The Euro 2016 champions were handed a shocking 0-2 defeat on Tuesday. 19-year-old Breel Embolo headed Switzerland ahead in the 23rd minute. Admir Mehmedi doubled the lead just 6 minutes later. Portugal, who were playing without Cristiano Ronaldo, regained their composure and dominated for the rest of the match for the most part, but they were ineffective in their attack. Now, this was Portugal's first defeat in 2 years under coach Fernando Santos. And that is our bulletin for right now. Don't forget, you can track all of our stories on our digital, mobile, and social media platforms. I'm Archit Seshadri. Thanks so much for watching WION. We'll see you soon.